Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me, as always, is Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney. How are you?
Good evening, and good evening to all the Demonlanders out there.
Yes. We've got a very, very special program lined up for you tonight. We've secured ourselves quite a special guest for the evening.
Football royalty, I think you could say.
Well, definitely Melbourne Football Club royalty and AFL royalty. He's an All-Australian, Max Gawn. So he'll be joining us within the next 10 minutes. So that's very exciting.
Yep, he's a fixture on the footy show, so he's in high demand across all the footy media. We see him everywhere, so we're very lucky to have him tonight.
Yeah, it's an absolute coup to get him. I was absolutely rapt that we could get him. So thank you to Max and thank you to the Melbourne Football Club for allowing this to happen.
Absolutely. Great to bring the players to the supporters.
Exactly.
In another forum.
Exactly, and I'm hoping this is sort of we forge a good relationship with the club and with this program, because it would be great to get a variety of different people from the football club to come on and engage with us, engage with the supporters, and maybe give a little bit of a different point of view than we get from sort of media interviews with possibly with people that don't know as much about the D's as we think we do.
Yep, sure, absolutely.
So before we bring Max on, we had a few things we wanted to talk about, and one of the things we're going to talk about is the fact that this week's game is the what's the official title for the match? The
BCNA. The BCNA Pink Lady match, I think.
Yes, so it's a match to sort of promote the awareness of breast cancer, and that whole thing about promotion means that we would you'd expect to be more promotion, and I must admit I was absolutely unaware until today that this game was the Pink Lady match.
Yeah, so was I. And I think everyone was taken a bit by surprise by it. One of our posters, Jane, too, saw it, and then she's put something on Demonland, so now we know about it. And today, Jordan Lewis did an interview and a photo shoot at the MCG. He was wearing the pink polo. It was with BCNA, so the promotion and publicity behind it really kicked off today, I suppose, which, it seemed to be lacking up until today anyway. But it's good to see that they're now promoting it. I noticed the club sent something out about the pink Guernseys. And I don't know about you, but when I'm travelling into the games on the train, a lot of people like the pink Guernsey, don't they? Like they've got it as their normal jumper that they wear each week to the footy.
Well, it's not just the pink jumper. I noticed I won't say the majority, but I notice a lot of jumpers, not just of even the Demons, a lot of other opposition supporters wearing sort of alternate Guernseys, and not necessarily the Clash Guernsey, but the special Guernseys, the Anzac Day ones, the Indigenous round Guernseys. You often see those Guernseys around,
yep.
And I might make that sort of segue that comment into the fact that I still hate our white Clash Guernsey. I know we had a win in it the other day, but I can't like it. I don't know what it is about it, but I have such a huge objection to it.
I think a few people have said it looks like it's made in Bali. Looks like one of those classic sort of Bali beer singlets, doesn't it?
Well, are you talking about that big, massive logo on it?
Yeah.
That
just looks like not much thought has really been put into it.
Yeah, it doesn't have much design aesthetic to it, just chucking on that big logo onto the white jumper. But for me, it's not so much that look of it, it's just the white jumper. Really, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not so fussed about the white. I
Yeah.
think if they get it right, it can look okay. But you mentioned the Indigenous Guernsey and also the Anzac Guernsey, and now we've got the Pink Lady Guernsey. Uh, that we end up not wearing our real home and away traditional colours all that often in the season, do we? Because once you take away the away matches and the clash Guernseys and the alternate clash Guernseys, and then you throw in all these, special rounds, you're sort of really only left with, probably half a dozen or a bit more games where you're wearing your normal strip. So it's just an interesting development, I suppose, with these the growth of the themed rounds in recent years.
Yeah, most definitely. But I must say, from a web designer aspect, when I'm making the banner, which I change yearly on Demonland, I always like to get them all in that the traditional red and blue Guernsey, and it's getting harder and harder to find images that I want and like with players wearing the
Yeah, for
traditional
sure.
Guernsey.
Yep.
So that's for me. It's probably a bit of a selfish reason that I just want to see us play in our traditional Guernsey. And speaking of Guernseys, the back of the jumper, no sponsor as yet. Will we ever see a back of the jumper sponsor this year?
The clock's ticking. We're 6 rounds in already, so that's a hell of a lot of airtime already. That's hasn't now won't be included in whatever arrangement can be made, assuming that an arrangement is made. I don't know. Will we go through the entire season without one if we can't secure one? I guess that's what would happen. But it's interesting, isn't it, when the club's never been in a better position, sort of on field and probably off field too, over the past decade, and yet we've managed to secure it in previous years when the chips were down. So.
I think the biggest issue, probably the hurdle getting there is actual screen time. Free-to-wear screen time is probably the big one. And whilst we've got an exciting young team and the future looks bright, until we sort of getting those fixtures, the big fixtures on the TV, I think it's going to be hard.
That's
to
true,
try,
but we're
try
able
and
to
sell
get
it.
sponsors without the big fixtures for the past 10 years. Now, admittedly, they haven't been, maybe the top shelf sponsors that Peter Jackson might be trying to attract now. There's been a few disastrous arrangements in years gone by, the Energy Watch being one of them. But, perhaps we're trying to jump a tier in terms of, where we land with that, in terms of the brand that we're associated with and the dollars involved in the deal. But people have complained online that the club's keeping us in the dark about this. I mean, how are they meant to communicate with us on this, and what would they say other than we're working on it? You wouldn't expect any business or company to divulge the details of negotiations that are ongoing. So why should this be any different?
Yeah, I'm not too fussed about it. They'll get it done when they get it done, and I don't think there's much else to say about it. It's it'll happen when it happens. No other business would be expected to divulge it. So why should they? It'll come, and once we put the runs on the board, they'll be knocking on the door. So I think at this stage we're going to take a short break. You'll hear a little bit of music just while we get Max on the line, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with our very special guest. So stay tuned. You'll hear some music just on the line. Just enjoy a rendition of our favourite song, "Grand Old Flag."
It's a grand old flag. It's a high-flying flag. It's the emblem for me and for you. It's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue.
All right, we're back. Grapevine, you take it away.
Our very special guest this week needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway for those of you that have been living under a rock for the past few years. He's played just 64 games in the red and blue, but Max Gawn has already earned all Australian honours. He finished third in last year's BNF after leading the competition in hitouts. And in addition to his imposing presence on the field, Max is one of the game's biggest cult heroes off it. Although the fearsome beard, which was such an integral part of the phenomenon, is no longer. Max, thanks for joining us tonight on the Demonland podcast.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
So, Max, you've been on the sidelines for a few weeks now after surgery to fix that hamstring. The big question, the question on everybody's lips is, how is your face coping with the loss of the beard? Is the beard trying to fight back to re-establish itself, or is it gone forever?
It's a good question. I haven't shaved yet. I haven't really grown too much hair to shave, but I haven't shaved yet, so I'll keep growing it for a little longer, and then I'll make a decision when it's too long if I'm going to go again or if I'm going to shave it off again.
Fair enough. Last time we checked, you'd raised more than $2,000 for Reach by getting rid of it. What was the final amount you got to?
I think it's still going. I think it's up to about 3,500.
Wow.
Amazing effort. Good stuff.
Really good. So are you worried about the Samson and Delilah effect? Did the beard give you all of your powers and without it you're just an ordinary ruckman? Or are we going to see the Max Gawn, the Fear the Beard, without the beard?
Well, the beard in my mind was there to keep me injury-free because the last time I shaved was when I got injured.
Yep.
So I kept it it was 3 years and running, and then I got injured again. So I thought, what better excuse to shave it off and start again? I'm not sure if I'm going to go the same method, like I said, but maybe I might do the moustache this time around.
So it's a case of watch this space.
That is exactly right.
We saw pictures and footage today of you running at training. How's your recovery going, and what's the timeline on your rehab?
Yes, I'm very optimistic with this injury. It's not a very common injury, so it doesn't have a set weeks on the boundary. 12 weeks was what we said from the start, but 12 weeks is absolute worst case scenario in my eyes. So I went and saw the surgeon today, and he's very optimistic as well, and he thinks that it could be a lot sooner than 12 weeks. So at the moment I'm just jogging, so I've still got to do the traditional hamstring build-up from jogging, so I've still got a little bit to go. I'm not back this week, but I've still got about 4 weeks of building up my running, and then see how it goes from there, and hopefully it's around the maybe 8-9 week mark.
So
good news.
Yeah, great news. So it must be frustrating to be on the sidelines. How are you staying out of trouble while you can't sort of, train? You've got limited training. Are you still required to be at the club every day like the other guys?
I did have a week off there because I was actually finding it very hard to get off the couch. So they gave me a week at home, which was quite boring. I'm someone who likes to get out and about, and I've got a fear of missing out, so I didn't really enjoy that. But I was in there in the second week, and I've been in the coach's box the last 2 weeks as well. So I'm just getting into the real big training program for my hamstrings. So I'm doing a fair bit of training at the club, but I'm also trying to keep involved because I don't want to miss out on what the team's going through as well.
You mentioned sitting in the coach's box the past couple of weeks. Is that something Goody's forced you to do? Would you rather be in the stands where you don't have to be on your best behaviour, presumably, and keeping quiet?
Yeah, I got given the option. It makes more sense if I can help the team in some way or another win a game. If that's in the coach's box and all I do is say one comment that might help us win the game, that's what it is. So I don't mind it. Sometimes you got to put your earplugs in because the coaches can talk for hours. But apart from that, I don't mind. It's actually a good view to watch the game as well. Probably the best seat in the house.
Have you learned things sitting with the coaches and just listening to the way it goes?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I targeted in my rehab was to learn a little bit more about the game. We got, well, it's not a good predicament at the moment, but when I do come back, there could be me, Jake, and Cameron all going quite well. That's Jake Spencer and Cameron Pedersen.
Yep.
We could all be going quite well, and there could be a chance that maybe they want to play 2 or 3 of us in the same game. So I'm learning a couple of things. I went to watch Gold Coast North Melbourne the other week live at Etihad, and I just was watching a little bit of how Tom Lynch and Ben Brown played as that forward ruck. I'll do that again this week. I'll go watch the Western Bulldogs on Saturday night. And obviously, I'm learning stuff from the coach's box, watching some of our guys go around, like Jesse and Cameron and even the guys we verse. For example, on the weekend there was a couple of good forwards like Joe Danaher and Cale Hooker that I was keeping a close eye on. So if I can keep just to have that in case we go down a different path when I do get back. I might as well do it if I'm doing nothing for the next six or so weeks.
Yep.
So Jack Watts said earlier in the week that he heard from you that Troy Chaplin and Ben Matthews were fighting over Clayton Oliver in the coach's box, with each wanting him to be on their part of the ground. Did you get involved and go to bat for your midfield colleagues?
Yeah, there was a little fight going on, especially when Clayton
trying to get a piece of the action for the back line.
I don't think the back line will win. I don't think Jade Rawlings will win that fight. But with the midfield, it's funny. We've got a lot of guys that can go through the midfield. So that's something that we've added over the last couple of years. It used to be just Nathan Jones and hope and pray someone else can win the ball. But now we've got about 6 or 7 guys that can go through there, which means Clayton can go forward. So if we keep winning the ball in the middle, sometimes we can put Clayton forward. As you can see from the weekend, he's got a nice pair of hands on him.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Is coaching something you'd consider doing in the future? Is that something that sort of tickles your fancy?
I have coached before. I coached Ormond under 16s and then followed them on for another year and coached them at the 17s level, which was quite fun, quite rewarding at times as well. I'm not sure how serious I want to get to. If coaching is a full-time job, I think that's a different kettle of fish. But I've done my level 1 and level 2 coaching course, and in some way, as a leader, you're almost a coach as well. So I'm sort of coaching around the club, and especially as I'm injured, there's a little bit more I can do. So it won't hurt if I keep doing all this stuff and learning more about the game and doing these coaching courses while I can. It won't hurt me in the future if that's something I want to do.
Yep.
So you've been out of action for 3 weeks, but half the side has had a crack at filling in for you. How have you rated the efforts of Spencer, Watts, Peterson, and half the other team with trying to have a go?
Yeah, so Spence was going well. Unfortunately, we only got to see 5 quarters of Spence, but they were pretty good quarters. So unfortunately for him, he's been waiting for 2 years to get a crack, and if you even go further back than that, he behind Mark Jamar for a while as well, which meant that he wasn't playing too much footy at that time as well. And Mark Jamar actually did his PCL 1 week. I think it was back in 2011. And he was out for 12 weeks, and Jake actually did his knee in that same round. So there was a chance for Jake to play 12 weeks then, and similar to this time, there was a chance for Jake to play about 8 weeks, but unfortunately injury God struck again with him. So, but we did see 5 positive quarters, which alluded to what I was saying before, that there's a chance they could play both of us when we do come back. Obviously, I'll probably have to be more of the forward ruck, but I'll keep that string up my bow. The other 2, Cameron, we've seen 4 quarters of him as well, and it was a positive 4 quarters. Tom Bell-Chambers was quite underdone compared to someone like Ben McAvoy this week, who's in a lot more form. So it'll be interesting to see how Cameron goes this week. And the other guys, who else? Watsy's just playing his normal role. Apart from the games when me and Jake went down early and he had to step up, he just plays his normal role as backup ruck and giving rest when Cameron and Jake needed it. We even tried Tommy McDonald there on the weekend, but with some games coming up against some good tall forwards like we do, especially the Crows in 2 weeks, I think Tommy might be needed back in the back line.
Yeah. How are the other 2 boys in the Rezzies tracking, Max King and Lachlan Filipovic? Is that his name?
Yeah, Lachlan Filipovic. Max King actually got delisted. It's Mitch King.
Oh, Mitch King. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Too many Kings, Maxes, Mitches.
A lot of people will be getting confused with that one, so it's okay. But
Yeah.
they're both quite young. I got rushed into it actually when Mitch's at Mitch's age now, so I was off a knee reco, and then the story I was alluding to before, where Jamar and Spencer both went down, I got rushed into it for 4 games, and I was probably a little bit more ready than what Mitch is now. Mitch will probably need another 3 or 4 games yet before he's eligible for selection, just with this knee reco. And Lachlan's really raw, but Lachlan's started well. He's ticked every box that he's needed to at the moment, and I think he could be in line for a VFL senior debut this week.
Nice.
We mentioned Clary Oliver a little while back. Aside from yourself, of course, who do you think is the best young talent at the club? Is it Oliver, Petraka, Hogan, or Hunt, or someone else, perhaps?
I'm just flattered that you put me in the young group, which is good. We got an abundance of young talent going around at the moment. Clayton's one of the best guys I've seen come into a football club and have the best hands. His hands are super. He didn't really learn that when he was here. He already had that, so it might be one of those genetic things passed down from family members, but he's super around the ball. But one of the unsung heroes that I'm really liking at the moment is probably Alex Neil-Bullen, who's VFL riddled last season, polled very well in the VFL Best and Fairest, and also the JJ Liston, which is the Brownlow medal for the VFL. And he put in a big pre-season, and it's coming out in his footy. He's played 5 to 6 very good games. He's a bit down on the weekend, but hopefully he can go again. But I think Clayton's leading the young brigade, but guys like Alex Neil-Bullen and Jaden Hunt aren't far off.
So, Max, you've been at the club through a very trying period. You've played under too many coaches to mention. How important is the stability that we're seeing now? And can you just talk about the transition from Roosie to Goodwin? Because it seems from the outside that it's been pretty seamless.
Yeah, you're right. I have been through a lot of coaches, and the last 2, Roosie and Goody, it almost feels like it's just been one coach. So it feels like we've had one coach for 4 seasons now, which adds to the stability and probably adds to the growth that we're seeing now in the team. Goody's obviously got different values to Roosie, but we're playing similar footy, just with a tiny little bit more of attacking flair, which is good, because that's what Western Bulldogs and Crows and even Port Adelaide are doing this season. You got to play with that attacking flair to keep up and kick high scores. So Goody's been well in the transition. First time I've been through a transition like that, and it seems seamless to me. So hopefully he keeps tracking the right way.
Max, thanks again for your time. We've got 2 more questions for you, and then we'll let you go.
No worries.
You've become a cult figure in the football world with your wit and humour. Who else at the club can match it with you in the funny stakes? Yeah,
I had to. I wasn't necessarily the cult figure the whole way through. There was a young guy called Jack Fitzpatrick that had it for a couple of weeks as well. But since he's been delisted, it's actually quite a boring club. No, there is some funny guys. Jaden Hunt's starting to make his own little path in the AFL. He's a little bit different. I'm enjoying what he's putting up on the social media threads, which everyone is. And a really underrated...
Nippies and the owl fascination.
Yeah, the owl fascination, which everyone seems to be on top of, which is... it's quite a fascinating story, to be honest. He hasn't seen an owl for 10 years, and all of a sudden he sees 7 in 1 week. But I actually really rate Colin Garland as one of the funny guys at the club. He's very understated. He used to be called Humphrey Bear because he didn't speak, but he's come a long way, and he speaks too much now. But he's a very funny man.
So we've seen Max the barista, we've seen Max the DJ. You were making tables and furniture with former Demon Matt Jones at one point. Is Max Jones and Co still going? And also the big question: what would you be doing if you weren't playing footy?
Yeah, I've tried a couple of things. I've been not good at a lot of things, so I was not good at DJing, so gave that up. I made a few bad coffees in my time, so I haven't given that one up yet, but that's close. Max Jones is still a thing. It's very little at the moment just because of the time. Matt's in a full-time job now. And to be honest, he was the brains of the business, so he's tried to give a couple of tables over to me, and I've got no idea what I'm doing. But what would I be doing if I wasn't playing footy? I suppose that's one way. I'm taking a different path here, but one way I keep myself sane when I'm in rehab is I just pretend I was at home and not playing footy, and what would I be doing? And I'll be doing a similar thing. I'd be trying to stay fit. I'd probably be going to the gym at 6 a.m. rather than what I'm doing at 10 a.m. at the club. So it's actually a good way to keep sane. I'm getting paid to stay fit at the moment and not much else. So it's a good way to keep your head in the right place. In terms of occupation, my family's been hospitality for years, so I'd probably stay in that area of work.
So Max, we could talk with you all night, but we better let you go. But before we do, I'd like to just tell you and our audience a little anecdote. So as you and some of our listeners are aware, my family and I sponsor you, and we're very proud of that fact and proudly display the photos that we have with you each year in our office, the ones we get at the season launch. I guess you're the tall, skilled footballing son that my father never had. Now the genesis of our sponsorship with Max, in case anyone doesn't know, dates back to when you were just a new recruit. We won this tall and skinny, smooth-faced at the time boy in a raffle. We had no idea who he was, and we actually attempted to give him away to a homeless guy on the way home, but he politely refused, and we were stuck with him, and we've stuck through him through all the injuries. We were your biggest spruikers to anyone who would listen to us, and we were there cheering you in your first match when I don't know if you remember this, you took a mark, you were 10 metres out straight in front, and do you remember what you did with the kick?
You honestly think that I'd forget?
You shake that kick, but I told everyone around it, this is my boy. We're sponsoring him, and you can't imagine how thrilled we were when, through your hard work and your perseverance, you truly earned the number one mantle of ruck at the D's, and you've stamped your authority on the position to become the number one ruckman in the league. And Max, you're a superstar of the club and the competition, so we hope that your rehab keeps tracking well and you'll be back on the park before too long. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us tonight. Thank you, Max.
Thanks, guys. The good thing is there is a young little grandson of Jack's playing at Ajax who's a talented ruck as well. So
yes.
Hopefully he can have a young ruckman of his own blood playing sometime soon.
Most definitely. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Max. We really do
appreciate
worries.
It. Thanks, boys.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks, Max. Well, that was Max Gawn. What a good man. I mean, I think it's so great that he's so willing to learn. Keep learning even while he's injured. It seems like
that was interesting, wasn't it? That bit.
And
he's instead of just sitting back and watching and even just providing encouragement, which is what you'd expect a player normally to do when they're injured. He's really trying to improve his craft and learn as much as he can. I suppose that's how you get to become the best in the business.
Well, that's right. That's right. You don't become the best just by half-assing it, and he's definitely not doing that. And he's done it the hard way. He sort of did his time on the sidelines with injuries, did his time in the resis, and he's taken his opportunities when he could. And look at him now. He's one of the best in the league, if not the best in his position. So
yeah, Sam Jacobs from Adelaide is having a pretty good season in Max's absence.
Yeah,
so
it would have been,
he's going to have to fight for that mantle again.
Yeah, it would have been nice had Max been fit to face off against him in a couple of weeks. But maybe come finals time, we'll see that clash.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him back out there. Yeah,
he's so good, isn't he? He's a real natural, in front of the camera and in front of the media. It just comes really easy to him, doesn't it?
For brand wise, for us, you can't think of a more sort of important player in the last decade, or even before then. There's not many that we've had that's had such an impact, that's instantly recognisable for brand wise. It's just, you have kids. I've got nephews who are Geelong supporters, and they saw him once in the street or at Nando's or something like that before a final, and they were sort of starstruck. When there's not many players on our list who would at the moment who would probably garner that type of...
there are a few personalities across the league that are like that, aren't they? They just transcend their club, and, anyone from any club can pick them out in the street. And I suppose we got a similar character transplanted into the club by Adelaide in the form of Bernie Vince. He's also good in front of the camera and knows how to have a laugh on the footy show and do that kind of thing. Yeah. But Max is he's homegrown talent, so I guess we're extra proud of him, and you'd be doubly proud of him given, as you said, all those years of involvement and all those years that it took for him to grow into what he is today.
Yeah, so we've been sort of with him from the beginning. I can't take any credit for anything, but I've just been waiting for him to to blossom into what he has, and he's rewarded us.
I don't know how happy he was with you bringing up that
that
shanked kick in his debut game.
I actually found it today on YouTube, so I might send him a link of that. Max, if you are listening, it's at look on YouTube. I think it's round 11 or round 14, 2011, about the 2 hour and 5 minute mark. If you want to timestamp that, but something tells me he doesn't want to remember that kick.
No,
it was a pretty bad kick.
The other interesting thing was his comments on Nibbler.
Yes.
Very high praise for Nibbler, wasn't it?
Yeah. I knew when he said it that it might be a controversial comment for some on Demonland, but yeah.
Well, I've been critical of him in weeks past, and others are sort of critical about, I suppose, his polish and finishing. The way he finishes off his work in getting rid of the ball, but very high praise from Max there, and the fact that A and B is still in the team, and yes, he was probably a bit quieter on the weekend, but still did some good things. There was that he was certainly showed composure when he passed the ball off.
He was in the forward line. He sort of kicked it off.
I think it might have been to Hannon, perhaps
in traffic or whatever. So he did show composure, and I've been happy with the year that he's had. He's certainly had a much better season this year, more consistent. So
no doubt,
he's had
and you can't fault his defensive work. He's always got high tackle numbers, and he works hard defensively, and I think that's obviously highly rated by the football department.
Yeah, so we can now talk about the game on the weekend, but we made our way back to our favourite stadium now, because the hoodoo must certainly have been lifted. We've had 2 wins this year there, so
it's our new favourite ground.
Yeah, I mean, I still hate the stadium, but it's no longer a daunting prospect going there anymore when you've had a few wins. What did you think of the game? I mean, it was a scrap in the first half, but...
The first half was abysmal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was from both sides. It was just... bits of it were unbelievable.
There were passages of play where both
whole
teams...
sequences of possessions
were
in a row.
coughing it up. Each team just coughed it up, and it was a comedy of errors, as they say.
Yeah, no, just like no one wanted to hold on to the footy, basically, but... we came out and were much more composed after half-time. And the third quarter was the kind of Melbourne that we've come to know and expect this year. For the most part of the year, we've played pretty good footy, and it all clicked together in the third. And it was some of it was good to watch. Credit to the forward line because we got 14 goals from Garlett, Petraka, Hannon, and Jack.
Yep.
And that's a good return, isn't it, from the four of them? And that's the bulk of your. I think we only kicked 17 for the.
Yeah.
Was it 17 for the day? So yeah, to have 14 from your four forwards is a great return. With Jesse missing, so that continues. The fact that we're able to kick a decent score, even though the forward line's a bit makeshift at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's got to be a fantastic sign. Not having Jesse there, not having even a, well, we've got Watsy there, but we don't have the traditional. Watsy's playing a lot of ruck, but we don't have the traditional forward or centre half forward. Yet we're still kicking winning scores, kicking over 100 points to boot. So that's a huge positive because once the forward line starts clicking. Once Jesse gets back in the game, and it bodes well for us.
Garlett and Petraka have really improved their set shot kicking this year. Garlett especially, it was one of the sort of flaw of his game really in recent years that he wouldn't capitalise on the relatively easy shots.
Yeah, I used to think he would be better off just going back and just running it in, if he was on the run.
He's been nailing them this year.
Absolutely. The last 2 weeks, he's nailed them, and even in and against Freo as well, he sort of kicked a timely set shot goal.
He's kicked 15-4 for the year.
Had a great year. Yeah.
I think in 2015 he kicked 40-31, and last year, I don't have the numbers on me, but last year was similarly sort of much more skewed towards points. So to be 15-4 at this stage of the year is really good. He's on track to kick above 40 again, which would be great.
And that's what you want from a guy like him. And not just that, his defensive work is outstanding at the moment.
Well, he's getting a goal a game just from one of those tackles, isn't he?
Yeah.
Those chase downs, we've seen that a few times this year.
And it lifts the team. It's not just the goal that he gets from it. It really lifts the team. It lifts the supporters, the fans, and you can't sort of buy that type of thing. Talking about the yips, kicking yips, let's go back to the second quarter and Joe Danaher. Now, do you think the result may have been a little bit different had he sunk a few of those goals? I mean, certainly the scoreline would have been different going into half-time, and I just fear that perhaps the game would have got away from us. Do you think we would have been able to come back and do what we did in the third quarter if he nailed a few of those? It might have been a totally different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, do you? But,
no, you don't.
We've been able to come back in the past, not just this year, but in previous years. So, let's say he'd kicked half of those and they went in 3.5 goals up instead of a couple of points up, I think they were. That's still not an insurmountable lead at half time.
Yeah.
So we may well have come out and had the same sort of third quarter that we did, but
and we missed a few early on.
Changes the complexion of the game.
Yeah. Well, we missed a few easy ones early as well, gettable goals. So you can say if and if. But,
I mean, look at the game against Geelong.
Exactly.
Did you see the footage of him? Carrying on when he got that goal, which he shouldn't have got that goal. He only got that goal because the umpire was apparently still setting the mark.
Okay, so that's what happened in that instance. Like, I saw him play on and kick a point, but so that was the umpire. That should have been called play on.
Yeah,
even if the umpire...
I was livid when it got called back because it should have been a point. But and then there was that footage of him hugging Hibberd at the start of the third quarter and laughing.
Really? I didn't say that.
It was just a bit bizarre. I don't know what he's doing. He's obviously having some sort of a joke. Pig didn't look too impressed with it and sort of had a get me out of this look on his face. But, it's just bizarre. It's no wonder that opposition fans dislike Danaher.
Yeah.
He's an easy character to dislike, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm not a big fan. I don't think he's a very good footballer. I don't know. He's tall. He can take a mark, but he should have buried us, and he didn't. And that's not the first time I've seen him do that against us or our opposition teams. So, bad kicking's bad football, and he consistently does that. So
yeah, it evened out round 2 of last year when he couldn't miss. So, if you put the two together, it comes up sort of all square.
Yeah.
But how good? We spoke a moment ago about Christian Petraka's 4-goal game, which was a great game from him again. How good was that goal?
From the boundary?
Sorry?
The one from the boundary?
The one from the boundary was great, but the one in the third quarter, when it was just pure strength and he sort of had players hanging off him, he was in the square. And just that quick kick, but gee, he's a beast, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. And people were saying, he's done it on one leg. Do you think that's the case? To me, he didn't appear to be injured.
No.
I was quite far away.
He did in the Richmond
game. Well, obviously there was, but he doesn't seem hampered by any injury. I mean, he may.
No, I think he had the strapping on, but
but that's precautionary, you would think.
Look, I think if there's any real problem or danger or risk, he probably wouldn't be playing. But we're starting to really see what he's capable of now, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Taking some really strong marks, kicking some great goals.
He's very strong.
He kicked 12-11 last year, and he's on 11-2 this year. So he's fixed up his accuracy incredibly. That's a huge improvement. So.
Yeah, I'm wrapped with him. As we will focus on the midfield a bit, and before we talk about the obvious guy, I'll talk about one that's been a bit down in previous weeks, but had a ripper of a third quarter. Jack Viney.
He did have a ripper of a third quarter. It was back to the Viney of old.
That's
right. Takeaways from the contest. Running and getting a bit of a break going, and then there was also that great piece of work close to goal where he sort of burst through a pack, handed out to Clary, and Clary got that great handball, which we'll talk about in a minute, to Tommy Mack. But it's funny, isn't it? Because Demonland is critical of Jack when he does that, when he tries to burst through a pack.
Yep. But
he did it. And it resulted in a goal, didn't it? Yeah.
Well, when you burst through a pack and get tackled, you're going to have a lot different reaction to when you burst through and get it off and it results in a goal. I want to see more of those bursting through and breaking through than getting caught. But yeah, he looked fantastic a few of those times, just using his strength.
How good were Clary's hands to Tommy Mack?
That was absolutely sensational. I mean, just his hands everywhere. I mean, I think he had 25 or 28 handballs in the game, and each one of them are just sensational. He had 15 disposals in the last quarter alone. That's for a guy that there were question marks over whether he can run out games or will tire. He's not. He's really taken the next step. So I think.
Well, he's second in the coaches' votes at the moment, which. Is as high an accolade as you can get.
Yeah, so he's second behind Sloane, who has had a ripper of a year so far and is, rightly so favourite for the Brownlow. But there was an article on afl.com.au talking about the favourites, who are the early favourites for the Brownlow. And I'm not putting pressure on the kid or saying that he should be one of the favourites, but he was totally overlooked in this article. They even talked about Yo and... who was the other guy? Ollie Wines, who are below him on the coaches' votes, but they were referring to the coaches' votes ladder and
not
even mentioning him, saying the ones behind Rory Sloane were these two who were rightly so favourites for second and third favourites for the Brownlow, totally missing out even Selwood and Clary who are equal second behind.
Well,
Sloane.
the Herald Sun hasn't overlooked him because there's an article that just got posted up a short time ago saying can Clayton Oliver cause a Brownlow boil over? So
you know what I think I don't know.
It might have bypassed the people at the AFL, but it hasn't bypassed the Hun.
I wonder how the umpires are viewing it, because he could be a guy that's either going to get the threes or he'll just get a whole lot of twos and ones and won't be able to match a Sloane or a Dangerfield getting their threes consistently. So we'll see.
I just noticed in the chat room that Destroy All says that Petrarca was hobbling a bit in the first quarter.
Okay.
So
it was hard to see from my vantage point where I was.
Yeah, I was up in the heavens the other day, and I was so far up that I had one of those huge beams that holds the roof in front of my face and blocking the scoreboard, so I couldn't see the ground or the scoreboard. So I got no idea what went on the other day, I've got to say.
Yeah, I wasn't as high. I was on that first level up. I wasn't too far back from the thing, but I was behind the goal. So anything that was happening on the opposite side of the field, I was sort of no chance to see. So I didn't see him hobbling. But I hope it's nothing
just getting
too serious.
Back to Clary, he's tracking top 10 in a whole range of statistical categories at the moment. He's obviously number one for handballs in the league.
Mm-hmm.
He's sixth for total disposals. He's number five for contested possessions, seventh in tackles, and he's going at 81% efficiency.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I was having a text.
They're incredible numbers.
I was having a text, not quite an argument, but a discussion with a mate of mine who's a Carlton supporter, who's obviously a big fan of Patrick Cripps and has never heard of Clayton Oliver. And I was, he was telling me how Cripps has had, Cripps is leading. Oh, what was his thing that he had? He's got the most contested possessions after 50 games, the most clearances after 50 games. And when you take Oliver's stats from this year alone and not count the first year, which I think, even if you do later on, if he continues the way he's going, he's going to smash those anyway. But just how he's tracking averages this year, he'll absolutely smash Cripps, those two things, with contested possessions and clearances after 50 games.
Yeah, he's a freak, really, isn't he? And I'm just thinking back to the pre-season launch, and if you remember, Angus Brayshaw did that Q&A with Jack Viney and Nathan Jones, and he asked both of them to nominate their breakout player for the year.
Yep.
And Jones said he'd go for a smoky in Dion Johnston.
Yep.
And Jack Viney, without batting an eyelid or giving it a second thought, nominated Clary. So, we heard Max praise him before. Everyone knows, the quality of the player that we're lucky to have.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that when you look at, I don't have the stats in front of us, but just going on memory, the hitouts were 40-20 or something like that, or 41-25, whatever it was. But the clearances, we won 41-28 or 30 or whatever. We clearly won the clearances after having clearly lost the tap outs. Well, that's fantastic from our perspective, considering our ruck issues at the moment. That's a healthy sign.
And it's a credit not just to the receivers, but also to Cam Pedersen and Jack Watts. I think I read that they'd been instructed to jump into him in a certain way so that he'd tap it into a triangle of hopefully of Melbourne players. So, the midfield setup really worked. And the makeshift ruck combination that we've got with Pedders and Jack and Tommy Mack doing a little bit too, worked, didn't it? We won the clearances, and that's always important.
Yeah, so it seemed that Tommy Mack was doing the backline ruck work, when it was deep in the forward line, and Jack was down there, he'd take it, and sort of Cam was doing it around the grounds. And yeah, look, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out over the next few weeks when we've got McAvoy this week and then Sam Jacobs the next week. So that's really going to be a good test for us, and hopefully our midfielders have been watching how those two ruckmen play, because that's going to have to try and shark from there. And it was interesting that Max mentioned in our interview that he's been going to watch other games, in particular watching how the forwards ruck, how the tall forwards ruck. So
and he mentioned a couple of times the possibility of
playing more in the forward line,
all playing together when he comes back.
Yeah,
that's interesting, isn't it? Because they trialled Spencer and Gawn in the JLT series, and it went all right. Although, some people thought that Max's impact was negated a bit by having Spencer there. So it was interesting just to hear him throw it up as a possibility. We've heard Goodwin say that the coaches like to be adventurous. So, maybe we will see some alternative arrangements when Spencer and Gawn do get back on the park.
Yeah, definitely.
It was good to have Bernie back in the middle on the weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the fact
for periods,
the fact that Jordan Lewis is back allowed that to happen, and the fact that Jordan Lewis was back was a great thing on its own. Was a great thing, because just the leadership he gives, just when the ball's in his hands, you just know he's going to do something with it, and 9 times out of 10 he does, and it helps. Not only does it help Bernie, I think it helps Jonesy, and it helps a whole range of people on the ground. He's a welcomed addition. Be interesting to see this week the reception he gets from the Hawthorn fans, because understandably Hibberd and Melksham received their boos from Essendon. So it's only natural we'd probably do the same to a player that walks out on the club. But it'll be interesting to see how the Hawthorn fans treat Jordan Lewis, because he didn't walk out on the club.
Look, they're not going to boo. They wouldn't boo Lewis. Lewis is...
football fans sometimes do. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Lewis is, talk about football royalty. Lewis,
4 premierships.
Lewis is that way down there. And to be honest, there were probably 30 or, more than 30,000 Essendon fans at Etihad, and 10 or 15,000 Demons. But I don't think there are going to be too many Hawk fans at this week's game. It's our home game.
Have they
are
deserted
gone,
the ship?
and they're notoriously fair weather, aren't they? So a lot of them would have dropped off.
Well, I hope I hope our supporters get out there, because I felt the last 2 weeks we've been the minority. When both times when Richmond got goals and Essendon this week, there was a higher decibel rating than we did. There's a few factors at work. There's a Richmond home game, and an Essendon home game.
So they were always going to have they're always going to have huge support, and they've got a large supporter base that's pretty active, at least until they fall off the cliff late in the season. But and it's the same with Essendon. With their, given their circumstances of what happened last year, and their reasonable start to the season in some games, there was always going to be a lot of them there on the weekend. But I don't fancy it's going to be the same this week. There'll be it could almost be like an interstate game in terms of the majority of Melbourne supporters there.
Well, I hope so, and I don't, because I want Hawthorn fans to get there, because I want us to make a bit of dough. These home games, you want to make some money. You want the club to make money.
true to form, Destroy All's come up with a very good idea.
Yep. What's that?
That we should boo Lewis, just so that people think the Hawthorns that the Hawthorn fans are. So I like that idea.
Bit of reverse psychology might fire Jordan Lewis up.
Yeah, and look, and then maybe Caro will get stuck into them with Caro's arrow on Footy Classified, so we can fake news. We can create some fake news, perhaps.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. We're gonna boo Lewis, Jordan. If you're listening, sure you're not, but we're not really booing you.
What Are We Seeing says that Clary's Brownlow odds are now at 51-1. I think I heard that he was at 67, so perhaps the extra publicity's is going to bring his odds in.
I'm not putting money on it. Last year, I think Jack Viney was at similar odds at the same time of the year, and I put some money on him. And I don't think I want to put the Moz on him, so I'll be staying away. My money will stay in my pocket.
I think Brownlow talk is silly, but
yeah.
You'd certainly look at having a wager on the Bluey Truscott, wouldn't you? Because he'd be kicking that down at the moment. Wouldn't
is there such a thing as wagering on the Bluey Truscott? Do we need to set up a black market a betting ring for that?
Yeah, we could do that. We could have a new part of a separate part of the forum where you can go and play two up, perhaps, and. You can smoke in the high rollers room and stuff like that. We'd call it the Ollie Wines Lounge, perhaps.
Yeah, if you
bring back something from the olden days.
Yeah, if you donate some extra to Demonland, you get a special pass. And just while we're on the point of donating, I just want to thank everyone who did donate to us this week. I put the call out. We had to increase some service space. Demonland's growing all the time. 1 week I'm going to get Nasher in to just have a chat with him, talk about his involvement with the site, because he's always been there in the trenches when anything technical has gone down. So, yeah, we needed to increase service space. Obviously, as you increase service space, it increases costs, running the site, and, we've already had to go onto a dedicated server, which means there's a dedicated computer somewhere out there on the internet that houses Demonland. And, so long story short, we needed a bit of extra cash, and whenever I've sort of put the call out there, people have been extremely generous and helping us out. So just a big thank you to everyone who did help us out with that. It's much appreciated, and if I could name everyone, I would, but most of you would probably want to remain anonymous. But if anyone you see on the site that has life member or annual member, they've contributed, so thank you.
Yeah, it's a great effort, isn't it? People are very supportive, so it's good to see that appreciation, because you and Whispering and Nasha put in a lot of time and effort to keep things going for the place that we all love to hang out.
And it's funny because I sent out sort of a bulk email to I think it goes to everyone on the site, and I had actually a few people who had been banned or something in the past sort of write back and say, "I'll never contribute to that site. Your moderators suck." So sorry about that. I can't. It's a bulk email thing, and someone actually accused me of for my slush, taking money for my slush fund. And trust me, this is not a money-making venture. I contribute to the club in a number of ways. I sponsor a number of players. The family takes out, quite a few premium memberships and quite a few standard memberships. I buy a lot of merchandise. I run a lot, so I buy all the Demons gear for running. So I give back to the club. Trust me, this is not a money-making venture at all. Anyway, that's enough of that, but just thank you to everyone who contributed. It's much appreciated.
Now we know, apparently he was back at training this week. That doesn't necessarily mean Jesse's going to play, does it?
The article sort of indicated that he would. I would think if he's back training. I got that feeling that the fact that he was back, that he would. I mean, there's no fitness issues, I mean, unless there's some, obviously he's grieving at the moment, but I would have thought if
he's back at the club,
he's back to play. Otherwise, he would have stayed an extra week in WA with the family and to grieve over there. I have never been in that position of losing a parent, so I can't say whether he will play. But I would have thought if he's in Melbourne, he's here to play. But I don't know his situation, so that's just a guess on my part. I'll understand if he can't play. That's it's not an issue from me whatsoever. If he doesn't think he's ready, then I'll back him 100%. But I think if he's here and training, he's here to play.
I was just thinking about his situation the other night, and it's hard not to feel incredibly sorry for him because, as you say, we don't know what that's like. We're a lot older than Jesse.
Yep.
He's, at a young and volatile age anyway, and to lose a parent, and not just to lose a parent, but to be living on the other side of the country to your family at a time when, you really want to be with them. I can't imagine how difficult that would be. So, I guess...
But that's also why I think if he's in Melbourne, he's here to play, because I think otherwise he would have stayed, with the rest of his family over there. And again, I don't know the situation. I don't know his relationship with the family or anything like that. It would just be guesswork. But I think if he's here, then he's probably going to play. But having said that, I understand if he's not ready. It's.
Yeah, and I'm sure the club have got the right supports around for him. To accommodate whatever, he might need. But if he does come back in, are we dropping a tall or a small? And who's going out?
That's an interesting thing. I'm assuming we don't have any injuries. There were no injuries from the match, so it turns... So we've got Jesse, who's available. Apparently Wagner had a great game. From all things, so so there's a possibility there. People have been talking a few weeks about Melksham possibly getting out of the team. I can't see that happening if he hasn't happened yet. So I think he's going to stay in the team. So I don't know. Do we?
Stretch didn't play for Casey on the weekend. I think he was the holdover player.
Okay, so he didn't play at all.
Some people, there seems to be this consensus on Demonland, or at least a lot of people that seem to think Stretch was rested rather than just omitted. I mean, surely no players, even young ones, need a rest after 5 games. Stretch was just dropped, wasn't he?
I assume so. I know that there were a few of the Essendon players were rested when they didn't, a few were left out of the team, but it didn't say that, I don't think, with Stretch. He may have been rested, but you would think it's quite early. I mean,
he's also one of the his fitness and preparation is at the upper end of the scale, so he wouldn't be one of those players that would have needed a rest.
If they're going to rest, you would think they'd rest a Jones or a Vince. Not because I don't think these guys are fit, but they're maybe because of their age. But I don't know. When did our Rezzies play? They played the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he might have just been held back, and it was just prudent. And they thought, well, he's young and fit enough to be able to miss a week if he has to, and we need him just in case someone. Because if he had played, does that mean he's ineligible to play in the seniors if he needs to be called up?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that rule. I imagine so, but I'm not 100% sure. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Goodwin's got plenty of surprises at the selection table. Stretch could conceivably come back in for Bug.
Bug had a very quiet game. Didn't really notice him at all.
No,
saw him a few times,
but nothing spectacular.
Nothing to write home about. So it's a possibility.
But look, we're a winning team, so there's that old rule of making as few changes as necessary.
But you would
as
say,
far as we know, sorry,
you would. No, I was just going to say, but you would say if Jesse's fit and he's obviously fit, but if he's going to play,
ready to go, he'll come back in for sure.
So who comes out?
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of speculation. Kennedy Harris,
Oh
a
yes,
lot of people calling for
yeah.
him to go.
Look, I got a bit frustrated with Kennedy Harris. I think he dropped a couple of chess marks again. There was one noticeable one he did out on the half forward flank or
Yep.
half forward flank wing, and it really frustrated me because I've always liked him, but I just the last 2 weeks I've been a bit frustrated with him, and yeah, maybe he needs to find some form.
Yeah, I think he's looked better in previous years than he has so far in 2017. It was interesting. Goody mentioned him in the post-match press conference and said,
What did he say?
You might not have seen, you might not have seen him doing sort of offensive things, but his defensive game was very sound. Or he said something like he was doing all the right things that we'd asked of him. So, yeah, it's interesting.
These are things we're not privy to. We don't know what the players are asked for.
That someone of Kennedy Harris's height and in his position that he'll be, sneaking a couple of goals each week, or at least hitting the scoreboard in some way. He hasn't been able to do that yet. But the coaches might have a completely different measurement for him.
Yeah.
A little bit like Neil Bullen. Neil Bullen hasn't really hit the scoreboard yet this year, but is obviously doing the right things to keep getting selected. So
yeah. Look, I know I prefer Kent over J. Kennedy Harris, but then people point out that the defensive game of Kent's hasn't been up to scratch, and I can see that if that's an important thing for the coach and the coaching staff, then that's that's probably why he lost his spot and probably has to earn it again through his deeds in the twos.
Yeah, by all accounts, he hasn't made a strong case at Casey yet. I think the 2 games that he's played have been fairly average, so he's not banging the door down by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't know. Does a tall come out, and if so, who? Because we need Peterson and we need Watts.
Yeah, well, then Peterson's not going, and I'll be very surprised if
does Oscar go back out? I don't think so. I think the back line sort of worked.
Yeah, I didn't mind Oscar's game. Maybe we can talk about Tom McDonald, because I was quite surprised that there has been a lot of talk about Tom McDonald, and we know, skill-wise in kicking sometimes is not the best, but I think his defensive play far outweighs any potential clangers that he might do. So I was surprised to see on Demonland there was quite a few negative posters about him. I mean, would they prefer him to be out of the team altogether? I mean, how could you even consider that?
It's been going on since the start of the year.
I mean, it's unheard of.
Sorry?
I mean, it's unfathomable that he could be considered to not be a certain starter, if not one of the first players picked.
Yeah, I think it's... look, we know what his limitations are, but, any talk of him sort of not being integral to the team is silly talk in my book. He and his brother are probably going to be, the Twin Towers down there for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Or however long it may be. Sam Frost is coming along pretty well.
Yeah, I was impressed with Frosty.
There's speculation now that we're looking at Jake Lever and Stephen May, so maybe they're looking for further support down there. But I thought Tommy Mack was great on the weekend, or very good at least.
And
he got coaches' votes. So.
Yeah, and I thought Oscar probably played a much better game than he's played all year. I haven't always been in Oscar's corner, but I thought he did a few nice things as well defensively. And Frosty, I've been very impressed with the couple of weeks he's been back.
Yeah, I like the way he takes the game on.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes he turns it over. But the instruction obviously is to attack from defence and when it comes off, it comes off really well, and we usually score. Filthy 84 says it's the best game he's seen Tom Mack play in a long time. Destroy says no one wants Tom dropped. Just stop trying kicks. He'll never be able to complete into the corridor. So
yeah, I must say I hold my breath sometimes when he goes across the ground. But yeah, that's sort of. You have a look at the way we play, and we're always looking to cross it over to get that man out. But what I don't like us doing when we do that is when we do cross the ground, but then we don't have the next player to kick to. It's one thing if you cross to the ground and then you've got another player and another player, but when you
sometimes you've got to go back a couple of times and then it works itself out.
But when we sometimes just go across and then there's no one, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 opposition players loose on that side of the ground, it doesn't work. So you've got to sort of use your brain and not just do that because that's a team thing. But then again, I'm not the coach. I've never coached AFL football. I'm just a supporter.
I'll tell you what's of much greater concern to me than either Tom or Sam's kicking, and that's this business of everyone flying for the same ball and no one staying down.
A pet peeve of mine. You'll hear me at the footy screaming, "Who's down?" So many times we have three up and no one down.
And we always concede. Mm-hmm. And it's not just in one game.
It's happened a lot.
It's been happening all year, and it happened last year as well. And I don't know whether it's a trust issue and they just haven't learned to play with each other and know when to go and not to go. But, they need to work it out. I mean, you'd sort of think that someone like Jaden should stay down because he can move the ball away quickly, but he's got really good leap on him. Yeah, I don't know how they work out who's meant to fly and who's not. As I say, it might just be something that comes with experience as they sort of trust each other more.
And I haven't mentioned, I've been remiss not to mention our phone numbers. If you do want to give us a call and talk about the game we just played, or the ins and outs, or anything about the upcoming game against Hawthorn, 2 ways to do it: 03 9016 3666. That's 03 9016 3666. Or you can Skype us, Demonland31. Just search for Demonland31, all one word, and you can connect with us. You don't need to ask for a friend request or anything like that. Just send through. You can call straight away through that. Jaden Hunt took a ripper of a mark, but I believe it wasn't paid, so therefore not eligible for Mark of the Year.
Yeah, and there are a few people mentioned online. Nev Jetta was up and about to take an absolute screamer until Tommy Mack spoiled him. So Nev could Tommy might well have cost Nev a car. So I wonder how that got sorted out later. And it was Nev's, we should mention Nev's 100th game on the weekend.
Had a ripper. He's a good footballer. He does his job every week.
Yeah, you can't help but admire. You can't help but admire him. The journey that he's gone on to come back from being on the brink of getting turfed out. Yep. To the type of footy that he's playing now and the consistency that he's been able to achieve. Well done, Nev. It's 100 games is a great effort for anyone, isn't it?
I'm just I'm just jumping on my Facebook, or in particular the Demonland Facebook page. If you want to follow us on Facebook, search for Demonland. You should be able to find us there. I shared a post that the AFL did just prior to the game, and it was interesting. It was about Nev Jetta's 100th game, and it said, "Congratulations to the underrated Melbourne Football Club defender Neville Jetta on reaching 100 games in today's clash against the Bombers at Etihad." So it was nice that they recognise, well, obviously they're going to recognise someone's 100th game, but they recognise that he is a good player and he is underrated. So that was nice of the AFL to do that.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when everyone says that he's underrated.
Yeah.
If everyone's saying that he's underrated,
Yeah,
then he's
doesn't
not
it?
really underrated,
That's
is he?
right, yes.
He's actually quite highly rated.
Yeah, we're rating
But
him
I
by
think what they
underrating
mean,
him.
he's one of those
Yeah.
unassuming
Yeah.
types
Exactly.
who just goes about his business, head down, bum up, and gets the job done with, no fuss. But it's what we should also acknowledge, which some people may not know about Nev. Even though he is a quiet type, he's actually does leadership and mentoring work. I think in the Indigenous community.
Yep, he's won a few.
and-
He won an award about it one
Yes.
year. I can't remember whether it was a Melbourne Football Club award or whether it was through the AFL. Yeah,
Did he get nominated for the Jim Steins Award at the Brownlow?
yeah.
he
Maybe
might have been
maybe it was
nominated,
that.
but he
I'm not
didn't
sure
win.
if he won. Yeah, I don't think he did win. But yeah, he does a lot for the Indigenous community, and yeah, credit to him for doing something like that. It's always very admirable and a great trait for a person to have.
Yep, absolutely.
Um,
The Hawks are teetering, aren't they? I don't know if you saw any of their game against St Kilda, but they were just listless.
Yeah.
And they looked like they were jogging, not cracking in. And you kind of get the feeling that if we came in really hard,
Yeah.
we could deliver a knockout blow,
Well,
in
I'd like
the
to
first 20 minutes.
I'd like to see us do that to a team because I think those type of victories have been very few or far between, and unfortunately, my MFC SS, my Melbourne Football Club supporter syndrome, has me worried that we're going into the games as favourites. I prefer the underdog status, but I think, there's a reason why we're going in favourites, and if you've seen any of Hawthorn's games this year, you can tell. I mean, they've been
They
thumped
just looked
3 times.
disinterested and dispirited against St Kilda. It's quite bizarre to see, and all these players who sort of lifted and perhaps were playing above themselves when they had the likes of Mitchell and Lewis around them, are now just look exposed as really ordinary footballers. So they went all right against the Eagles, although it's hard to
judge the Eagles.
Hard to judge how
in
important that
Melbourne.
was, but they've been thrashed in most of their games this year, so you'd hope that we can dish out a similar sort of punishment.
Yeah, and I'd like to play the Eagles in Melbourne one day as well. That would be nice. It just seems like there's certain teams we just never play at our home ground.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had a home game against Essendon.
Geelong, we mostly play at Skilled, and we played them at Etihad this year. I'd like to play them at the G. A few years ago, I know we did play them at the G, but it's our encounters with some of these teams at our home ground is few and far between, and I think the AFL really has to fix up that sort of inconsistency. And it seems like whenever we play Essendon, we always have to wear this white jumper, and that's why they play us as an away game. Make them wear a white jumper for once.
Yeah, I hate Essendon.
Yeah.
So, for a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, though, at the game last week, I was seated next to an older Essendon supporter. And bizarrely, he was quite reasonable. And, well, we weren't talking all match, but, occasionally sort of just passing comment in breaks in play. And I was surprised that I'd actually come across a reasonable Essendon supporter. So they are out there, even if there aren't too many of them.
I sat next to an Essendon fan as well, and at one stage I got quite frustrated with Jake Milksham, and he just turned to me and he goes, "We're not taking him back."
No, I heard similar comments. He's your problem now. That's. I think that was a common theme around the ground, probably.
Yeah. But so this week will be interesting. We are favourites, I believe. I think I was doing my footy tips the other day, and It's very rare that you see a Melbourne v Hawthorn game, and you have a look at the betting, and you see that we're $1.45 and they're $2.75.
Yep. Well, we started the rot last year, didn't we? In that round, it was a 19 or 20 game.
Yeah.
Where they'd won so many in a row, and we finally burst the bubble.
Yep.
And Jordan Lewis probably decided that day that he wanted to jump ship.
Yep.
And jump on board.
We played well against them 2 times last year, because I think up until 3/4 time in the first game we played them, and that was in the wet, we were in with a chance, and then I think they just sort of blew us away in the last quarter.
I don't think that was. I think they kicked 4 or 5 in the last quarter, and we went down by about 4 goals.
Yeah, so blowing away.
Then we managed to sort of reverse it because things were tight at 3/4 time in the return match, and then we went on to
we kicked 5 goals or something to nothing in the last.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shane J has just mentioned in the chat room that Roosy's second game coaching was a home game against the Eagles at the G, and he says not a good game. And I think I remember the one he's talking about. I think it might have been a 90-point thrashing, or maybe I'm getting them mixed up with a Neild game. But
there was a game. There was a game.
Happened. It's one of those that we've wiped from our memories.
There was a game against the Eagles at the G that I remember taking my daughter. I think it was one of the first games she ever went to, and they were absolutely thrashed us. But she asked me, why don't they take turns in kicking goals? I said, exactly.
We needed that rule.
Back then, I would have taken that rule in a heartbeat.
George on the outer makes the important point that it's important that we win this week because of the other fixtures. If we lose, we're potentially 2 games out of the 8. So
let's look at the other games. You've got St Kilda GWS at Etihad.
So St Kilda are sort of in that mix.
St Kilda's with us at the moment. GWS are probably favourites, so go there. Adelaide are playing North Melbourne. That doesn't really affect us yet. There's Collingwood, Carlton. Collingwood anchor, that'll make either team even with us, and depending on percentage for us, we'll still be on top. Port Adelaide, West Coast. Well, that's important because both of those teams are on 4 wins. So if we win, we're even with one of them, and potentially can leapfrog West Coast depending on percentage. Port still have quite a superior percentage over us. Gold Coast, Geelong. Well, you would think Geelong should win that. But if Gold Coast do win, that puts us even with us. Western Bulldogs, Richmond's an interesting one because I believe Western Bulldogs should beat Richmond, but it keeps us sort of with those two.
Yes. Yep.
Sydney, Brisbane, not really relevant to us. Us versus Hawthorn, and then Fremantle, Essendon, which certainly is relevant to us because both of them are equal with us, and a win for us takes us a game away from us. So the results do, particularly with those teams that are around us. I think the St Kilda, if they lose, Essendon or Fremantle, one of them lose. If one of Collingwood and Carlton loses, if we win, it gives us that game, a breathing space of a game between a lot of those teams. So, very important. Particularly as well because we're going into a tough match the next week against Adelaide.
Yeah.
I'm not too optimistic about that game. It's a bit of a yardstick of where we're at or how far.
They're just playing sensational footy at the moment, so it's hard to see in the current form anyone knocking them off the way they're going.
Yeah, it'll show us how far away we maybe are to a team that's sort of on the cusp of a premiership. I mean, you'd have to say they're pretty much early favourites, at least for, definitely top 4, probably final day of September, the way they're going. So,
Well, they're just kicking enormous scores,
mm-hmm.
and they're playing such polished footy.
Yeah, well, they're
moving the ball with absolute skill.
They've got a great midfield, a great forward line, back line's pretty strong. I think it really showed where Richmond are at there. And I look, I don't have I don't think we'll beat them, but I do want to.
Who are they playing this week? Adelaide.
Who did I just say a minute ago? North Melbourne in Blundstone Arena, so that's in Tassie.
Okay. I mean, look, they're going to lose sooner or later, and it may well be, we might get them. As you know, someone's going to eventually knock them off.
Yeah.
Crazy Jagaro Schmierer is confident against this. Says our midfield will match up well against Adelaide, and I think our forward line could trouble them.
Yeah.
But the back line will be under immense pressure. So
yeah, definitely.
Yep. Look, the best back lines in the league are going to struggle to contain their forward line the way it's going at the moment. They're just
and we will.
They're on fire.
We'll talk about that more in depth next week when we've got. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yep.
Let's not count our wins before then. We've still got a job to do this week, and let's do it. Let's. You know what? I've been to many Melbourne Hawthorn games where I've seen arrogant Hawthorn fans there, so I'd just love to stick it to those fans who, over the years, there were a few games in the last 10 years where they really thumped us. So it'd be nice to return the favour.
Yep, and we're on telly this week. We're on free-to-air telly, so. That's the televised game on Sunday at 3:20, so that's good. It would be better if we had a sponsor to promote, but we don't. But, maybe Peter Jackson can show them a tape of us being on free-to-air, and that can get someone over the line.
Yeah, maybe Demonland can... what are they asking? Do we know? Do we know what the back of the jumpers were?
You'd really have to put the begging bowl out if you... if you wanted to do that, I think.
What if I make the stickers for them and just stick something on the back of the jumper that might make it a bit cheaper?
Well, get it done in Bali like the away Guernseys. So that's probably the cheapest option.
So what else is there? I take it you're not a gaming fan, meaning PlayStation, Xbox.
I'm not, but. I was grateful that you brought up probably the most iconic AFL gaming moment in gaming history, and that's out of bounds on the full.
You remember that, the old Nintendo Entertainment System?
Well, it was great to see some of that match on YouTube today. I was just watching it and remembering those kicks that they could just go so far they almost go off the screen. I mean, God, I know it was a long time ago, but gee, that game was crude, wasn't it?
Yeah, when you
even the sound of that the ball makes when you kick it.
Yeah, the bling.
It's just, I mean, that's one for the ages, really.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, coming out on Friday is a game called AFL Evolution. It's the latest version of an AFL game on a gaming platform. I think it's on PC and PS4 and PlayStation 4 and Xbox. Now, in the past, AFL games haven't been great. It's hard. There's not a lot of money in the development of these games, and it's sort of AFL, the type of game that the AFL is. It's just not. It's very hard to. There's a lot of moving pieces in an AFL game, and when you compare it to something like soccer. And there's a lot more development money and a lot more people buying those soccer games, so you can understand why there's...
Yeah, it's the same with the NBA, isn't it?
And NBA,
it's got global
football,
popularity.
That's right. I mean, but even America has a big enough population to have a lot of money probably involved in their hockey games and their American football games, but the AFL doesn't have that same supporter base to warrant that. But the AFL...
Having said that...
Yep.
it's inexcusable to make Jaden Hunt look like Billy Stretch.
I was going to get to that. Now, I was going to ask Max sort of about that, but I wanted to. We only had a limited time with Max. We only had about 15 minutes, and that's fair enough. I think he might have stayed on for longer if we'd asked him, or but I didn't want to push the push the relationship with the club. But I wanted to ask him about what he thinks about the. That game and whether he thinks his likeness is any good. But Jaden Hunt posted on Instagram a picture of himself and a picture of his likeness in the game, and they look nothing alike. And I'm pretty sure all the players had their face, the 3D imaging done to their face. Like they came down to all the clubs and the players all did whatever they have to do, go into the machine or have the photos taken all around them. But some players look almost identical to what they look like, but Jaden Hunt looked like his third cousin twice removed.
Well, he looked like Billy Stretch.
Yeah, probably just used the same photo.
He's got sort of short, dark hair and quite a dark face, so... and that sort of...
So he posted a picture of him and his likeness in the game and said, it's like looking in a mirror, being extremely sarcastic about it. But, I'm looking forward to the game. I enjoy playing the AFL games. I liked it back in the Nintendo days of playing that out of bounds on the full game. It's just great being able to take the Demons to a premiership. It's the one place I can do that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's got its market, doesn't it? There's more than enough people, but as you say, in a global context,
I mean, who's going to?
It's up against it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not even. There's no one.
So, did the Max character actually look like Max?
Well, I haven't
seen Jaden.
I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming the Max character won't look like Max now because I'm positive he'll have a big beard in that game, and that's what I wanted to ask him about. I wanted to ask him if he had the beard, which I'm sure he does, and if there is an option to, because some of these games I know in the FIFA soccer game you can adjust, you can create your own player and sort of give yourself your own attributes in terms of what you look like and skin colour and hair type and all that. And I think a good thing about the FIFA games, and I'm hoping they have this in the AFL game, is that you can take a player from the juniors and work, his way up through the ranks, and that's quite a fun thing to do. And it'd be nice if you could take a player, maybe not at a local footy club in the thing, but maybe from the Resis or the under-18s, and they get drafted to a club, and based on how you play. And,
I mean, I've seen the FIFA games, and I'm not a gamer, but I've seen them played, and they're remarkable for their likeness to the real thing.
Yeah, and they've got it better and better and better and better over the years.
You could almost fool yourself into thinking you're watching a proper game of soccer, down to the commentary. They've got the top line commentators there, John Champion and Jim Beglin and Peter Drury and that. So, it just looks, sounds and feels like the real thing. So, let's hope that...
let's hope
that this goes some way towards that.
Yeah, well, let's hope Dwayne Russell isn't one of the commentators.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we suffer in that front. There's soccer's got some fantastic commentators, but we're pretty light on. We're pretty light on that front, I think. Yeah,
and we don't play many Friday night games, and I would assume that they put the best commentators on the Friday night, and we seem to get all the Saturday afternoon rejects.
Yeah, although we're not necessarily now, because BT does Friday night.
Yes,
he's sort of filled in for Dennis. So
once Dennis
you've
left,
got BT and Bruce now.
Yeah.
I don't mind Anthony Hudson, but apparently he called us on the weekend and was... a lot of people were critical of the call. So
people were saying he was almost barracking for Essendon, I find that extremely annoying whenever I watch footy and you sort of hear the commentators barracking. I don't mind them getting excited if the game's close, but barracking's a bit far.
Yeah, I look, as I say, I have watched the replay, and I was at the game, so I didn't hear it. But I understand that they'll almost barrack for not for the underdog, but barrack for whichever team is down during the game, because they're trying to make a contest of it. So
you often hear
if
them
Essendon
say,
are 4 goals down, they're going to greet Essendon goals better and pretend that something's happening when maybe it's not. But
you sometimes see, especially on a Friday night, when they're trying to keep the audience and the team's down by 40 points. The other opposition will kick a goal, and it's all of a sudden they get excited.
I can't. Bruce is doing that too much now. I mean, they'll be 10 goals down, they kick a goal, and he says, "Well, you just think if they can get the next 4 or 5, something's on, isn't it?" It's like, no, it's not. Nothing is on. This game is over.
Yeah, they think, there's 7 minutes left. They only need a goal every 30 seconds.
That's right.
Like, no,
so apparently Dennis Committee is the commentator on Evolution, according to the chat room. So
nice.
They've snared the good one.
Yeah, because he's
the golden tonsils.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be some great quotes from that. I'm sure he pulled out a few special comments that only Dennis can do.
Yes. Yep.
So, was there anything else that caught your fancy on Demonland this week? Before we go there, just if you do want to call, 039016 3666. If you want to talk about anything, talk about the Max interview, talk about the either game last week or the coming game this week, 039016 3666, or you can Skype us on Demonland. And for anyone who is listening to a replay of this, if you want to join us live, we are live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. And we have a live chat at demonland.com/podcast, so you can chat with us and listen to the podcast as we go live. Otherwise, you can wait and listen to it in your car or on the bus or on the train or on your commute by using SoundCloud or going to iTunes and subscribing. So yes, was there anything else that caught your fancy on the website this week?
No, look, I haven't had a lot of time to be on there, so
how dare you? Sir?
I may have missed something, but yep.
How do you think the deliberate out of bounds rule and the interpretation is going?
I hate it. It's virtually a last touch rule.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. Why don't they just do the last touch?
Well, I hate that too, because kicking for touch historically used to be a skill. That's why we have the phrase, and it's a Melbourne player, a la Johnny Beckwith, hitting the boundary line, a la Johnny Beckwith.
Yep.
And even if you do have a deliberate rule, there needs to be, a lot more consideration of a player who's running, who picks up the ball, is facing already the boundary line, is under pressure, and virtually has to do a somersault to try and kick it back into the centre, where he's most likely going to turn it over and concede a goal.
Yeah.
So you should be able to pick up the ball under pressure and just throw it on your boot down the line. And if it takes a bad bounce over the boundary line, so be it. It should be a bloody throw-in.
Well, I've seen them punish people sometimes for a bad kick. Like sometimes they're kicking towards the forward line. It's a bad kick and not necessarily shanks it or sprays it, but it's not a great kick and it goes out. And they get, when clearly their intention wasn't to go out of bounds, and they're getting.
I agree.
It's a bit of a kerfuffle, and I don't know if it's cost anyone a game yet, but
it's going to at some point.
It really is.
I just hate this sort of thing that we need to keep evolving the game. There are some bits of the game which they're perfectly fine. And yes, I think, once sides really started sort of exploiting the boundary line, I'm glad they brought in deliberate. It's, to stop that sort of misuse and, so the last 10 minutes of a game, one side just keeps rushing it over for throw-in after throw-in. We had to get rid of that. as they did with the, conceding a rush behind.
Yeah.
But it's gone too far, and I don't know for what purpose. We've got an oval ground with wings. There are some sides, I'm glad we're not one of them anymore, but some sides like to play the boundary line. It's their game plan. So what does it mean for that tactically? If you're a coach who wants to move around the line, then, you're at risk of sort of conceding more of these free kicks, and just for what reason?
Yeah.
Why not then cut the wings altogether and the entire game can be played through the centre corridor because there's nowhere else to take it?
Yeah.
So I hate it, and I also sort of dislike the fact that there aren't many sort of older journalists in footy anymore, because some of those guys, and I know quite a few of them have left, certainly the Herald Sun in recent years. The Age have cut more staff today, so they've lost a lot of their, football reporters too in recent times. But you've got these young kids who are reporting on the game, and they don't understand the history of it or see it in the bigger perspective. And I just think that, maybe if there was more of these older journalists still around in the footy media, they'd be sticking up for the traditions of the game a little stronger than what we see at the moment, which is just blind acceptance to keep changing the rules for no real reason.
Yep, I agree. It's a terrible rule, and let's hope that something can get worked out, because it's not working. It really isn't, and it's not good to see. And
it's all over the shop.
Yeah,
and we haven't really seen it yet, but one day it'll cost a side, and there'll be an outcry. And what are we doing it for? For what reason?
Yeah.
We're scoring more, and we've gotten rid of the ugly rolling mauls for the most part. Yeah. So the game's looking attractive. So I don't see,
there's no need. All right. Well, I think we're going to end it there. It was great.
It's been a long night.
It has been a long night, and it was great to speak to Max. I thought he was a great interview, and I knew that he would be. I hope that this can continue with us doing interviews, and we can work out a relationship with the club. And ideally, I'd love to get someone in from the coaching staff and sort of have a talk with them. But we are going to attempt to bring you sort of something each week, or someone. Stay tuned.
Even if it's just someone from the Demonland faithful.
Yeah, as I said, I want to get Nasher in. Perhaps we can coax Whispering Jack out of radio retirement and have a chat with him. And there's people who've been associated with the club in the past and the cheer squad and stuff. And we'll try and get some average Joes in, as well as the football royalty from the club. So
there's plenty of personalities out there, that's for sure.
That's certainly true. And so tonight I'm going to end it with a little song.
Before we go ahead. Can I ask? You played that very that slow rendition of Grand Old Flag before. Who's that from?
So that was from someone had mentioned on Demonland. Someone had been asking if anyone had a copy of Grand Old Flag.
Funeral.
Yeah, for a funeral, and someone mentioned that there was a CD that came out in the late 90s, I think early 2000s, called, and I've got it here, Every Heart Beats True, which had, sort of that song on it, but it also had like a whole lot of commentary from, talking to players past and present, just about the footy club and stuff, and I haven't listened to all of it yet. So I bought this on eBay for like $20, $25 or something. I think there are others around on eBay, you can see, but I haven't had a listen to it all yet, but that rendition, that Grand Old Flag, was on there, and it's a nice one. But that's not what we're going to end end the show on tonight. There was one rendition from YouTube that I found, which was by David Bridie, I think his name is, from My Friend the Chocolate Cake, who is a diehard Demons fan.
Is that the one at the end of the Marngrook footy show?
That's exactly right.
I love that version.
It's a great version. So we're going to end the show. We won this week, so I think we can play the song. And I think we'll end the night with that song. I really enjoy that version of the song, and yeah, it's a good one. So thank you, Grapeviney, for joining us again. You said maybe you're not going to be available next week, so
yeah, you might have to coax Whispering.
I might
coax.
I'll either get Whispering Jack, or I might put it out onto the forum to anyone who's got a connection and can talk for a couple of hours or whatever. But we'll see what we can do there. But anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you to Max. Thank you to the Melbourne Football Club for setting that up for us. It's much appreciated. And thank you for all of you listeners who were listening. We had quite a lot of listeners during the show tonight, so that's a good thing. You can find us on SoundCloud or iTunes if you want to listen to this back during the week. So without further ado, this is Grand Old Flag, David Bridie.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's an emblem for me and for you. Well, it's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Well, every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we sing a song for you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the red and the blue. Well, the team played fine in the year 39. We're the team that no one can lick. And you'll find us there after the final bell with the spirit of 1926. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we finish sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the red and the blue. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your